So hello and welcome to the interactive virtual craft fair held from Tuesday the 23rd to Sunday the 28th of March 2021. Our online show is a wonderful mix of live sessions, demonstrations, workshops, live chats and the opportunity to buy work from our exhibitors direct. And all this can be found on our website interact.handmadeinbritain.co.uk. So my name is Alice and I am a part of the Handmade in Britain team. And this afternoon, I'm really pleased to be joined by Blue Hill from Bluebell Ceramics. So I'll bring Blue on screen. And so it's lovely to see you, Blue. How are you? Good?
I'm good, thank you.
Yes. So where are you joining us from this afternoon?
Cornwall. I'm based down right on the end of Cornwall near Penzance.
Oh, goodness me. And I'm going to ask you that wonderful question. What's the weather like with you today?
Beautiful day, but we have had some showers, but the sun's out. So
it does look really bright in your studio this afternoon. So I'm going to jump straight in because you're new to working with Handmade in Britain. And some of our audience might not have met you or seen your work before. What's the best way to describe your practice?
Well, it's all hand-thrown pottery, terracotta pottery. So I've got some examples behind me here, and this is what I'm going to be making today. So just a basic cup. So it's all slip work with on top of a terracotta clay, as I said before. It's all handmade, hand-thrown, all the decoration, I do it all myself, so right from scratch. And these are some of the things that I make.
So talk us through, just before we begin, what can we see in the collection? So I can see we've got some beautiful thrown bowls, we've got some mugs, and what are those slightly larger blue ones on that top shelf there?
So these are bottles. I'll grab one and show you. They're inspired by traditional sake bottles. So it's like a flask, and you've got your drinking cup, and you've got your bottle for your sake to go in, and then you can just use it as a sort of ceremonial thing, or just decoration, or for whatever you like, really. But they're very heavily influenced by traditional shapes and ways of making them as well. So
I can see you've got the wheel in front of you. So what can we see? What are you going to be demonstrating for us?
I'm going to be demonstrating making a cup. So as I said before, one of these, and that's the end stage. And I've got a couple of more examples of the different stages. So that's just after it's been thrown and had time to dry out. And then that's the next stage where I've painted and decorated it with the slips. So you can see the difference in colours before and after, what those colours turn out like, because it's exactly the same. So there you go.
Wonderful. So I can see kind of we've got all the different stages to look forward to. So Blue, take it away. We'd love to see what you get up to on the wheel.
Yeah, so I've got a small amount of clay here, which is about a handful, and I'm just going to throw it down on the wheel, making sure that it's properly stuck down, and then I'm going to move on to adding some water to it, and I'm going to do some centering, which is basically where you take your hand and you cup it around the clay and pull it in towards you, using that centrifugal force to make sure that it goes nice and still on the wheel and it's nice and centered. Just adding a little bit of water here and there to keep it sliding from your hands nice and smoothly. And so once I've got it reasonably centered, I'm just going to flatten it out a little bit, make it into a good shape for me to start hollowing it out in order to make our vessel. So to do that, I'm going to use my thumb, which I'm just going to place on the edge, and then using my other hand to support it, I'm going to start pushing down into the clay, making a little hollow. And again, keeping my hands really steady. That's really important with doing any sort of throwing or working with clay, really, is keeping your hands nice and strong and steady. So once I've got down to the depth that I want it to be, I'm gonna take these two fingers and start to push out towards my 3 o'clock to make a nice flat base. So just pushing gently out, making sure it's staying on the flat at a steady pace, not rushing it. And then I'm going to go back to the center and just take that pressure from the center and back out, just nice and gently. And what that does is compresses the clay and makes it nice and strong. So just going back and forth.
So what type of clay are you using then?
So the type of clay that we're using today is terracotta or earthenware clay, which is brown clay, and it's the most common type of clay, and the most common used, I would say. So it would have been, what you'd see it being used for is kind of traditional old English tableware. So when you see things like puzzle jugs or old storage jars and that kind of thing, they're usually made of terracotta. That's okay. It's that's one of the things about it, is that it's so versatile. It's such a versatile type of clay. You can use it for so many different things. You know, you would know it best from just plant pots in your garden, and it allows a huge range of color because of its firing temperature. But what I'm going to do on this pot now is, you can see that I've already started a little bit of making the wall. So what I've done is basically made a little donut when I've been opening out the base, and from that I've just evened it out so it's nice even thickness all the way up through the wall. And then I'm just going to take my fingertips on each side of the wall, connecting my hands, keeping them nice and steady, and then I'm just going to pinch them together, and as soon as I start putting that pressure on, I'm going to rise up. Okay, that looks good. That's first lift done. I have to say we've got a slight inconvenience in that the clay has a little air pocket in it, so there's a little bubble in the clay, so you might see a little bit of movement in it. Okay, pinching again and just lifting that wall. You can see it growing. And then I'm just gonna, so what I've left here is a slightly thicker rim than the rest of the walls of the pot. And that's because we're making a drinking vessel. And you need to attach a handle to a cup. So you want a little bit of strength up on the rim where it's going to be attached, up near the rim rather. And also because we're going to shape the rim to make it really nice for drinking from. It's very important because your lips are very sensitive, so you want to have something that feels nice when you're drinking from it. Because my tableware is meant to be something that's used on a daily basis, and you know, favorite cup kind of thing, you know, something that you use every morning for your coffee or whatever. So we've got that sorted now. We've just got a nice beveled edge drinking from. And what I've just done is I've taken one of my tools and I've cleaned out underneath here to make a little definition of where the base is. I'm going to go down again. I'm just going to start a little bit of shaping, just opening it out a little bit there, just to begin that process. Before I carry on, I'm going to get rid of the water out of the pot, and then I'm going to make my little bottom edge. And what I mean by that is the little edge that I use to hold the pot when I'm dipping it or doing anything like that. So it's that little rounded edge you can see just there. It makes it really useful, so you can just put your fingers over that edge and do whatever you need to do. So when you're dipping it in the colours and the glazes or in the slips, that's what you hold it by. So that's what I'm making now. Okay. There we go. And then I'm going to take this tool and use it to belly the shape out. So we're giving it its volume now. So, bigger the belly, the more tea or coffee you can fit in there. Okay. And there you go, that's a basic form. Just got a couple more finishing things to do on it, and that will be one cup made. One of the most important things with doing something with a bellied form is keeping your eye in and making sure you're looking at it from the right angles. Because for me, it has to have the right line to it to make it look right. So I like to make them look sort of lifting and a little bit energetic, so that they're not, sometimes when you make something bellied, it can sort of sit a little bit dumpy, but I want mine to feel like they've grown up and it's all happened quite quickly, so it's got that kind of movement and energy to it. Right, I'm just going to make sure the base is nice and flat and clean. So all I'm really using this tool for is to get rid of this slurry that you get on the surface of the clay from the process of throwing. Okay. And next, we're going to wire it off. So there we go. Take a little garrote and wire it off. And then I'm going to clean the palms of my hands. I'm going to pick it up and place it on this back. So my hands are nice and dry and they stick to the outside of the pot, so I can just pick it up gently. And as you can see, it's very kind of movable. But because we've left a nice strong rim on it, it will retain its shape. So there you go. That is one cup form made. What I can also show you today is a little bit about making handles. So we'll do that next. So the in-between stage from this that I showed you earlier, which is when it's leather hard, so you can hold it and you can handle it and you don't have to worry about it misshaping, is putting a handle on. So we'll take some water, we'll take a nice piece of clay, something that you can hold easily in your hand, make it into a kind of pointed shape, just like that. And then we've got a bowl of water. And I'm just going to use the natural shape of my hand to grip the clay and draw it down with wet hands, kind of like a milking process, but it's important to keep the clay wet so that your hands slide down and they just pull the clay down through the handle. And it's the same principles as lifting the walls of a pot. So we're going to just keep doing that. And as you can see, it's getting longer. Just bring it down nice and gently. And with each pull, it gets a little bit longer. And I'm going around it and shaping it. So what you can see now is that it's got this kind of beveled shape to it on each side. And the way I'm doing that is I'll pull it down and that'll give a bit more length with that cup shape in my hand. But then I'll also, another time, come down with just my thumb down each side and once down the center to give it that beveled look, which allows the handle to be strong, but at the same time give it a delicate feel when you pick it up. So I've made quite a thick, substantial handle, because what I'm going to do next is actually attach a short, fat handle to the pot and then pull that away off of the pot. I would say that's my favourite type of handle to make because it has the most natural look to it, in that it seems as though it just grew from the pot. I'll just clean my hands off a little bit because I'm going to need to handle my leather hard cup shape. Okay, so now I need to judge around about where the handle needs to grow from. And as you can see on my other cups, it grows from about where the belly just starts. So that's what we're going to go with. Okay, so I'm just going to wet that point where I'm going to attach the handle, and then I'm going to rough it up a little bit. So just with a needle, I'm just going to scratch it. And this process creates a wet clay slurry, and it acts as our glue. So we've done that. Kind of like if you're fixing a bike tire and you use a little bit of sandpaper to rough up where you're attaching your fixer. Anyway, right, so next I'm going to take my little short stubby fat handle and I'm going to flatten the top out, because this is where it's going to attach to the pot itself. Okay, so there we go. It's kind of flowed out a little bit. And then take my cup, make sure it's a little bit wet, not too wet, you don't want it to slide around, and then just push it in onto where the attachment is, and then we'll go around it and start just smoothing those flared edges that we've made into the pot. And this just attaches it. This just makes sure that it's secure and gives it a nice smooth finish. And then I'll take a wet finger and go around that joining and clean it all up so it looks nice and seamless. There we go. Right, so there we go, little fat handle. And then I'm going to hold it in front of me, so like that. So holding it in front of me and have it nice and level, ideally kind of level around with your eyes so that you can see it being drawn down and it's at an easy height. So I'm going to do exactly the same as what I was doing previously with pulling the handle down. Okay? So just pulling it down, lengthening it out, drawing that weight that was in the handle out through the rest of it, making sure it's staying nice and even. And then when I start to get around the kind of thickness I want, I'm going to start shaping it again. So adding in those little beveled edges. Okay. And once I'm happy, I'm going to rest my hand underneath the handle, bring it up back to vertical, and put it down on the surface. So I'm going to put it just there. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. It's on the edge of its back. And I'm going to keep 2 fingers underneath the handle, and then I'm going to just gently bring it round and attach it to the pot. I'm not going to fix it yet, but it's attached now. I would say it's a little bit long, so I'll just make it a little bit shorter. About there. I'll attach it on, nip the tail off what's left, and then just make sure it's the right shape for what I want it to be. Give it a few adjustments while it's still nice and soft, and we can do that. And that, I would say, is one of the best things about making this type of handle, is that it's all done at this very wet stage. So if you want to make any changes, if you want to change the shape, if you think something else fits better with the pot, then you can do that right now. So there you go, handle and pot. So I'll show you now these 2 stages that we've just done. There you go. What a difference a handle makes, eh? Okay. Now, if anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer that, because I realise I've run through all of that and it's a lot of information all at once. So, you know, I've gone through it quite quickly. But if anyone didn't understand something, or I'm not explaining myself, you know, in a way that you find easy to understand, then
No, I think you've been really clear and concise. I think everyone is kind of in a hypnotic stage, you know, watching you work there. It's been wonderful. Thank you for explaining, you know, every single stage. But what we've got a couple of minutes. So what's the next stage that happens? How do you put effectively your colour on?
Well, now I can show you this. Unfortunately, I don't have anything ready to dip in the slip right now, But what you can see on this pot, and I'll pop the finished product down in front of me, just there. What you can see here is that I've put a white layer on, so that's the base layer, because the clay itself is this dark brown color that you can see. So if you try to put colors onto that, then they're just going to turn out like, you know, watercolors on brown paper. They're not going to show up very strongly. So we put a nice white layer on. That still allows some of the natural color of the clay to come through, but on top of our white layer, we then put, what I do next is I use our black slip, but I use it very thin. And my reasoning for that is because our black slip has cobalt and manganese in it, and our natural clay. So when you do it thin, it comes through with this beautiful sea greeny kind of color, and it gives loads of different shades where it's been brushed on at different thicknesses. So that's the next layer that I put on. And then on this one, I've put a sweep of a more intense white. So for that layer, I've used a little bit of china clay, made really wet into a nice smooth slip, and I just wipe that over the top of the black to give you another layer of different colors layering up on top of each other, so you can really see all of that coming through. And then on top of that, I've put a simple small amount of sky blue to just make all of those different shades pop a little bit more. What I find is it kind of enhances it and gives it something of the natural colors around me, really, because where I am, we've got the incredible Cornish coastline, and every day you go out, you're going to see a different shade of blue. So that's kind of what my inspiration behind these colors were. And then I like to do a little bit of a few sort of accidentally on purpose splashes on there to break up the pattern and give it a little bit more energy to it. So you can see that on these, and I can show you some of my little espresso cups as well with a similar pattern, but you see how each one is incredibly individual because of the variations in colors that I use, because I use them all at different stages of thickness. So like with the black being thin, but with each brushstroke it's just slightly different, like a painting really. So influenced by the landscape, I would say the colors are.
That really does come through, because when you're talking about, making the slip, slightly more watery, and it gives you a more green tone rather than a strong black, which we would presume. And then you're referencing the outside, and of course, you are based on the Cornish coast. So just having that, we can really see those influences actually come through into your work. So it is. A session like this with you is so important, because it's lovely to now kind of marry you as the maker, and you actually producing the work, and then actually finding out where you're located and actually seeing those two come together and form, your beautiful, hand thrown tableware. Blue, thank you so much. We are coming to the end of the session. And I'd like to say a big thank you from all of our attendees, and from ourselves, for doing a wonderful demonstration. It was, I've come away kind of learning something new, but also intrigued about, what else and what the future holds for the collection. So, once again, thank you so much, this afternoon, for joining us. It's been great. It's been great to see you, on here. So, just for everyone, thank you so much for attending this afternoon's a live session. We were joined there by Blue Hill from Bluebell Ceramics, who's based down in Cornwall, joining us from her studio.